And welcome back to the Countdown. I am your Countdown host, MJ Book, back for another episode here in the world of the Countdown. Hope everybody's doing good. Wasn't too long ago, just last week, as a matter of fact, released the last episode. I was on Batman Day, counting down favorite Batman movies. If you haven't listened or listened to that episode, please urge you to. There's no video for it; it's just strictly audio. But please definitely listen to that. But have an episode here for you today, and it is an episode been working on for a while and finally getting it done. We've even teased it a few times on here, but it's getting done finally, and it's an episode that I was not doing by myself. I have a guest here with me. He's been on the show numerous times. We've counted down Arnold Schwarzenegger. We counted down favorite movies. He is, of course, one of the contributors and co-host of Third Generation Wrestling. He is, of course, the ambassador, Rob. Rob, how's it going?
It's going good, man. It's good to be back. I don't know if we've done numerous. I think we've done two. I know this one has been in the works for a while, but I'm here, ready to get it done.
Hey, it doesn't matter. Hey, I think I've heard this saying, life is what happens when you plan something. So it's all right. True. Life happens. Got to work on everybody's schedule, and just generous with everybody's schedule. Appreciate you being here.
No problem.
The list that we're talking about, that we have been talking about literally since the first time you were on, because I asked you on there, we have to do this, worst movies ever. We did favorite movies ever. It only seemed logical that we did the other half. And it's hard to believe because that was like episode, I don't know, maybe in single digits first season. But we're getting this done now. You told me this was somewhat of a rough list, so I'm going to let you go. What was going on with this list for you?
Well, you just spoke about the podcast we did of our favorite movies. Well, that one for me came pretty easily because obviously when you enjoy a movie, you watch it multiple times, right? You can quote the lines and you know the movie back and front. This list is totally different, all right? These are movies that were terrible. So when I hate a movie or when a movie is terribly bad, I don't revisit it. I don't go back. I don't watch it. So that was the difficulty with this list, is that I knew some terrible movies that I had seen. Most of them I had seen a long time ago, but because they were bad, I hadn't watched them again. So I had to kind of do some research so that I could be able to talk about them on this podcast.
Perfectly understandable. And before we get to this countdown, there's something I do have to do. Try not to let my life get too personal into this. Just try to have some good fun. But I do need to do this. This episode, for those of you on YouTube, you'll see this. This episode is going to be dedicated to Ronda Brown up here. Very close personal friend of mine who passed away it's been 6 years ago since she passed away. It was yesterday. But also her birthday's coming up as well. So it's always kind of a rough week. So this episode, I'm dedicating to Ronda Brown, the immortal Ronda Brown. Miss you very much.
All right. Well, rest in peace, Ronda. Did I meet her once?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. I thought that I had. And, all of your friends are pretty cool. And like I said, I remember the one time I met her, just like the rest of your friends. Just cool people. And I was very sad when you told me she passed. I know how much it affected you. And so my condolences, first of all, and then, of course, rest in peace, Ronda.
Thank you very much. All right. Now we got the sad part out of the way. Let's get started with this countdown. And this is a 10-spot countdown. You have any dishonorable mentions?
I'll mention two. One of them we've already talked about extensively on our 3GW podcast. I'm sorry, no holds barred. I know it's one of your favorites.
I knew it.
I know you like it, and it's cool, man. That movie was rough for me. I was a wrestling fan when that came out. I remember all the hype, but the trailer looked so bad, I never saw it. So finally, for the sake of our podcast, I watched it. It was as bad as I thought it would be. So yeah, I did make it a dishonorable mention. And then I'm going to get this one out of the way because this is another one I know that you're fond of. But man, come on, from 1986, Howard the Duck.
Oh, the Duck.
All right.
I thought you'd put that in your 10.
You know, I was going to, but I thought I'll just get it out of the way. But look, man, 2 words, okay? We saw duck titties, okay? And I don't mean duck breasts like you would eat at a restaurant. I mean, we saw a female duck in a tub with her titties out. And to me, it looked like she was about to have some special time by herself. Now, look, we saw a young Leah Thompson in her panties. I'm not mad about that. But, I mean, it appears that she gave it up to this duck in the movie. Kind of weird. So, yeah, that made another one of my dishonorable mentions.
Oh, brother. Okay, dishonorable mentions. Damn it. I have a bunch, but I'm only going to name a few of them here. Progressively, I might throw out some. I might throw some out at the end. The X-Files, I want to believe. Oh, man, that was bad. That was just, that did not feel in any way, shape, or form like I was watching the X-Files. Which, for those of you who are X-Files fans, this is the second movie, not the first one, which is excellent.
Oh,
the second
the first one's awesome.
Yeah, first one, that's tied to the TV show. I tied the second one to that last 2 seasons BS they did just a few years ago. That's what that's connected to me, because it's just shit. Don't recommend watching that. And I know, since you named a movie I liked, I got to name one you like. And that is
fair enough.
It's Star Wars: The Force Awakens.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I really hate that movie. And I saw it twice. Okay. Now, with you didn't know I'd already seen it. When we saw it, I had already seen that piece. I already knew it was a piece of shit. I knew everything that was going to happen, but I did not want to ruin that movie for you. So I kept my beak shut and acted like this is the first time I'm watching it. So thankfully, and I asked you, you had no idea that I'd seen it.
Well, no, I remember after the movie, after we had watched it, because you and I had already planned to go see it, but you went to see it previously to that, and that no problem with that. But yeah, you then revealed to me that you had seen it, and I know of your hatred of it. I didn't know that it would make your worst of list, but at the same time, I'm not surprised.
Have I dipped back into Star Wars? Except for Solo.
Right.
That's the only time I did, and I've said for decades, if they made a Solo movie, I would watch it. So that's a different case. But I have not watched any of the 2 movies that have come since. I haven't watched anything Star Wars related since that piece of shit, and I just can't go back.
Well, if you hated The Force Awakens, you'll definitely hate the other 2 because of that final trilogy. The Force Awakens was the best.
Well, right now I have no intentions of watching either of those movies. I'm going to name one more, and we're going to connect this just like you did to 3rd generation wrestling, and that is Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I'm sorry, Eric. We're not picking on you, but just bad. Really, really bad. And we had watched the newest Mortal Kombat that came out, the original Mortal Kombat, and then we ended with that fucking piece of shit. It is horrible. The effects in this movie are laughable. It looks like they spent like a box, to quote Stephen A. Smith, a box of cookies to make this movie. It was just horrible, just terrible movie. And I was cursing at him for making me watch that thing. I think I said it on the show. I needed therapy. But all right, that's our dishonorable mentions for now. I have a few more I might say later, but let's get started with the countdown. As I said, 10-spot countdown. Guests always go first. Number 10. Go ahead, sir. What you got?
All right. From 2002. All right. I don't know if you've heard of this one. It's called Juana Man. Now, this is a movie about a big-time basketball player played by Miguel Nunez. and you may not know him by name, but you'll know him if you see him. He's been in life. He's been in some other movies. It's called Juwanna Man. Yeah,
I'm trying to look it up, but I don't even know how to spell Juwanna. So.
It's JUWANNAMANN.
Okay, I just found it.
Okay.
Oh, Vivica Fox.
He plays a big-time basketball player. Yeah, he plays a big-time basketball player. He gets kicked out of the league for some of his antics, but this guy is desperate to play basketball. So what does he do? He pretends to be a woman and joins the women's basketball
league. One of those kind of movies.
Right. It stars also Vivica Fox, who is the captain of the women's team that he joins. Now, because he's actually, I shouldn't say it like that. I shouldn't say that because he's a guy, he elevates the team. What I'm saying is that his skills elevate the team. The team is not so good, but once he joins, the team starts to climb in the rankings. They get better. But he starts to fall for Vivica Fox, who is the captain, but he can't reveal his true self to her, right? Because he's actually a man and he's playing women's basketball. It is horrible. Tommy Davidson is in this movie. He actually has a crush on the Juwanna Man character. He's chasing after Juwanna Man, thinks he's a woman. You know, it's just bad. It's not funny. It's just, at times it's uncomfortable. Yeah, so this made my number 10, Juwanna Man.
I've honestly never even heard of it. I might have saw a trailer back in the day, but I've never even heard of this thing. But I'm looking at the cast.
Well, lucky you.
I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked this is bad looking at this cast. Yikes.
Now, here's the thing. I've heard recent interviews with Miguel Nunez. He says that he is in discussion for a sequel to this thing, which I just can't believe. Now, when you look at the box office, it did make over $50 million. So it did have an audience, but it was terrible.
According to this, there is a sequel.
I've seen that, but I've seen a couple of different things. I've seen a sequel supposedly came out in 2015, but then I seen an interview with Miguel. Okay, but then I've also seen an interview with Miguel Nunez from 2020 saying that, well, yeah, we're still in discussion. So I'm not sure. Look, if there was a sequel, obviously I wouldn't know or care because I hated this one. So if there is a sequel, you can let me know, but it won't matter. I will not watch.
Doesn't look like there is. Looks like it's just talk of trying to do one. Yeah, well, there we go. That's the first one. Never heard of that movie. And I will not be curious. I'm not going to watch it. Just hearing the title, looking at the cast, I know this is a turd.
Yeah.
But my number 10, and I'll let the listeners know, I did something for you all, for you viewers and listeners. Every movie that I am about to name, and even movies that I just named in Dishonorable, I watched every single one of these movies, and including an additional some odd 10 movies besides that. So in the end of this, I watched around 20 extremely bad movies just to do this podcast. So that's for you viewers and listeners. I did this. Rob didn't do it. This was just me. I would never ask him to suffer. I did all the suffering. So you're welcome. All right, my number 10. And here's one of the reasons I did this. I wanted to go with this with a fresh mind. Maybe I overlooked something. Maybe something I thought sucked back when it came out maybe isn't as bad as I thought it was now. And it shocks me that this movie is number 10 because for the longest time, I said this was the worst movie ever. And I have it now at number 10. This movie came out in 1997 and stars Kevin Costner. For those of you on YouTube, you're looking at it right now. The Postman. I have said this movie was the most miserable piece of shit there ever was. Rob, I think you've heard me say that this is the worst movie ever.
Yep.
This is part of the reason I did this watching. I rewatched this movie. Oh, it is still bad. It is still god awful. It's 3 hours long. So a 2-hour long movie, bad. A 3-hour long movie, extremely bad. But here's what drops this. I had no expectations that this was going to be good or bad. I just had no expectations. It was just a movie. I had an idea it was going to be bad because at this time I worked at you remember, Cobblestone Theater at this point.
Yeah.
And I was a janitor. I was the head maintenance guy. So I cleaned all the theaters. That one that had the postman was always the cleanest. I could always tell there was only 1 or 2 people that was in there. 1 seat, 1 area of trash. So I knew, okay, this has got to be bad. But for some reason, I decided to watch this thing. Kevin Costner played this. It's a post-apocalyptic movie. Yeah, there's so many of these. And he wears this postman's uniform and he inspires hope by delivering mail. Sounds stupid. It is stupid. And the thing I always think about when I hear this, when I think of this movie, is Tom Petty is in this movie, not playing somebody else. He plays himself. He's playing Tom. By the way, rest in peace to Tom Petty, because I think he did pass away. Am I right about that?
He did pass away several years ago. Yeah, and rest in peace. I have some of his recordings. I wouldn't say I was a huge fan, but I liked enough of his songs where I have a greatest hits collection. And yeah, he was a great artist.
Same as here. Same here. But he's in this movie as himself. And I think it's Kevin Costner. He says the line, "To Tom Petty?" And he goes, I used to be. And I'm like, oh, Tom, what are you doing, man? It's so bad. There's only one person on the face of this planet I've ever met that loves this movie. Usually you meet several people that like a bad movie. I've only met one person that likes this thing. And I still give him shit. The Postman,
it's one
number
too
10.
many.
It is one too many. The Postman, number 10. What you got as number 9?
Man, I have seen that film, believe it or not. It didn't make my list. But yeah, Lorenz Tate, who is one of my favorite actors, is in that one. And I like Kevin Costner. I love Dances with Wolves, No Way Out, The Untouchables. He's made some great films. Field of Dreams, which is filmed right here in Iowa. I love that. But yeah, this one was just terrible. And first of all, the idea that you can inspire hope by giving people mail is a terrible idea. Most of the mail I get is either junk mail or bills. So you are not going to, you're not going to uplift me by bringing me mail. So, but yeah.
Well, you named,
all right, my number 9.
You named 2 reasons why this movie even existed: Dances with Wolves and Field of Dreams. Kevin Costner was loving the smell of his own farts a little too much. And after that, he started producing some shit like this, like Waterworld. I mean, just some bad movies.
Yeah. Well, it's not about to get any better. My number 9. Okay. A couple of these films on my list are sequels or part of a series of a movie, the original movie I loved. Okay. So this is one of those cases. And it's Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 1, as we all know, anybody who's a horror fan, I think most people who are a horror fan will agree that that's a borderline masterpiece, okay? The original Nightmare on Elm Street, directed by Wes Craven. Yeah.
I think I had it number 2 on my list.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Well, so obviously I've seen the first one. I am jacked up. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Can't wait. Okay, this movie came out in 1985. All right, so I'm in college, University of Iowa. I'm pumped. I'm ready. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. Let's go. Okay, so I get in there and wow. I was smoking weed at the time. It did not help.
It did not help.
It did not help. It's a new family. They move into the old Thompson house. Okay, the old Thompson house. Remember the Thompsons from the original.
Oh,
So
yeah.
this kid starts having dreams. Obviously, look, Freddy comes back, starts killing a whole new batch of teenagers. Terrible acting. I can't say the plot was terrible because look, the plot is pretty much the same as the first one. Okay, we all know who Freddy is. We know his background. You fall asleep, you dream, he kills you in your dreams. But I just didn't care about these characters. I didn't care anything about them. There was a scene that's very famous in this movie, an exploding bird. This maniacal bird starts attacking the family. And then from out of nowhere, the bird just explodes in this ball of fire. And then we see the feathers just flutter in the air. I remember being in the theater. People were just laughing. The ones who hadn't walked out by this point. So to me, when you have a movie that is an absolute classic and you follow it with a piece of garbage like this, it's a huge letdown. So not only is the movie bad, okay, it's just, as a standalone movie, it's just bad. But then when you have it following a movie that's so great and your expectations are so high, that makes it even doubly bad. So that's why it made my number 9, Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 from 1985.
Yeah. You know me, I love the Nightmare series. It's my favorite horror series. I own that series box set on VHS, and I still have it on DVD. And I do plan on getting that on Blu-ray. But yeah, that second one was shit. It was bad. I almost didn't dip back into it. But had I not, I wouldn't have gotten to the Dream Warriors, which was also on my list. That actually might have been number 2, because I actually think Dream Warriors is better than the original. But
I like Dream Warriors too. I love that one. I own that one, and I love that one.
It didn't help that the guy screamed like a girl when he would scream. I mean, that high-pitched cackling scream of his. I was like, oh, God, Freddy, kill him. And I already like you, but yeah, seriously. I liked Nancy. Even though I liked Freddy, I liked Nancy. I was like, Nancy, I want you to win this fight. Second one, Freddy, please just kill him. for all sakes, just kill him.
That is my whole point. The great actor Johnny Depp was in the original. You know, I cared about those characters. I cared about those characters. In the second one, I didn't care about any of these people. I agree with you. Freddy, just kill them all.
Exactly. And a terrible ending.
Yeah.
Just that movie was bad. They made up for it, but not to release anything, but that's actually an honorable mention. A dishonorable mention for me was Nightmare on Elm Street 2. That movie is Freddy's Revenge. That movie is horrible. So my number 9. Not a horror movie, but it was pretty damn horrific how bad it is. And my boy Rob was sitting right there next to me.
Oh no.
Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. 2008. I have said this story on this show numerous times. Rob, I've heard you say this story numerous times. I think I even heard you mention it in 3GW. And we always talk about this because this was the worst run of watching movies I've ever had. And I already kind of mentioned a part of it. X-Files, I Want to Believe. We watched these movies back to back and were completely disappointed. And they oddly did a flip. The aliens that were Indiana Jones should have been in the X-Files. And whatever that was with X-Files, maybe you can dump some of that into Indy, but not all of it. But we should have known that this movie was going to be bad. Too much time had passed from the last one to this one. But you can let that go as long as they do something decent. But I knew it wasn't going to be that when I saw Shia LaBeouf, or whatever the hell his stupid name is, As soon as I knew he was in this, I'm like, okay, this is not going to be good. I already know it. There's no way in the world this is going to be good. The special effects with the ants and the monkeys, and the ultimate, right at the beginning, who cares about spoiler alerts? But fine, if you're sensitive to spoilers, we're going to throw them out here. But these movies are so bad. This is a community service. We're saving you. Don't watch these.
Exactly.
At the beginning, you find out that Indy's on this land where they're going to be blowing up a nuke. Now, if you're on the land where a nuke is going to get blown up, you're dead. You're just dead. There's no survival. You're dead. Unless you hide in a refrigerator and it gets shot all the way out, you can live through a nuclear blast. So if a nuclear blast ever happens, people, just jump in your refrigerator. You're evidently going to live. And what was it, a gopher that popped up at the end when he popped out of that fridge? It was a gopher. I'm like,
yeah.
What is this, Caddyshack? I mean,
yeah. This was
bad.
This was maybe one of the worst summers ever as far as movies. You mentioned that you worked at the Cobblestone. That's where we saw both of these. And because you worked there, we got to see them for free.
Free.
Right? And we were excited about both of these films. And both of these films were so disappointing. I mean, man, it ripped my heart out. Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. I think I said it on our Best Of podcast. I think I voted this as my favorite movie of all time, the original, the first one.
I think you did.
And like you, I was a little leery of this one because it had been so long between this and The Last Crusade. But the trailer drew me in. They were smart with the trailer. They put the few good parts of this movie, they put them all in the trailer. Had me thinking that I was going to see a halfway decent film, even with Shia LaBeouf in it, because I agree with you about him. I'm not a fan. But nope. George Lucas had to put aliens in it. And I actually watched this movie recently because
so did I.
This year, 2021 is the 40th anniversary of the release of Raiders of the Lost Ark, my favorite movie of all time. So I felt like I have the Blu-ray of all of these movies, all four of them that have been made so far, because there is a fifth one coming out. And I thought,
oh boy,
look, let me go ahead. My original intent was just to stop after The Last Crusade, but I thought, you know what? Since I own it, let me give it another shot. So I watched The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and it is just as bad as I remember. I more than likely will never watch it again, no matter what the occasion, even if it is an anniversary. One of the hugest disappointments, this goes to what I was saying about movies that are sequels to movies that I loved. How big of a disappointment. Believe it or not, this one does not make my list. But yeah, what a huge disappointment. What a horrible movie.
I'm shocked. You said this is not on your list. Is it at least a
believe it or not
mention?
You know, if I could have thought of more dishonorable mentions, but I just kept it at 2.
Wow, I'm shocked, because considering how much we talk about how much of a nightmare this was. I mean, this I mean, when was this movie made? 2008. 13 years ago, and we still talk about how bad this thing was.
Yeah.
I still want my money back, and it was free. I didn't pay, but I still feel I need money back for watching this. And I watched it again. Every single one of these movies I have rewatched. And watching this is one of those movies, it was actually worse the second time through. I'm like, yeah, this is just shit. It's just bad. I say I'm not going to watch that fifth one, but I know as soon as a trailer pops up, it's going to get my juices pumping with nostalgia for Raiders, for Last Crusade. Now you can throw Temple of Doom in there because Temple of Doom is 1,000 times better than this.
It is, and
And
I
I
wasn't
feel,
crazy about Temple of Doom, but
oh, now you love it after this.
compared to this, it's one of the best movies ever, if by comparison. But yeah, I'm gonna
Exactly.
go see the fifth one, but
We'll probably
unlike
end up seeing
this
it
one,
together. You know, we're
yeah,
gonna probably end up seeing it together.
I'm sure we will. Unlike this, even if the trailer is great, I'm still not going to be satisfied until I see the film. I've
We'll be
resigned myself
prepared
to the fact that I'm going to see it, but my expectations are still low. No matter how great the trailer is, my expectations are going to be low.
because of this movie.
Exactly.
All right. That's my number 9. What you got, sir, as number 8?
Okay. All right. We're going back a ways, but a lot of my movies are going to be from the 80s because I was a high school kid and I was just, you get high, you go see movies. So that's what I did. All right. This one, wow. 1984, the year I graduated high school. I don't know if you've ever seen this one. Obviously, if you haven't, it's on my worst list. Don't bother. It's called Bolero. All right. It stars Bo Derek, and it's directed by her husband, John Derek.
Oh, I know what it is.
And it's actually kind of creepy that he directs her in this movie because she's nude for like 60-70% of it.
Yeah.
And here's the bad thing is that Bo Derek at this time, she's beautiful, right? And she's naked. How can that movie be bad? Well, I'll tell you how. Here's the plot of the movie. She's a rich girl from Britain. She's young. She's a virgin. So she's like, it's my sexual awakening. I'm ready to let a man take my virginity. And so she's a rich girl, so she can travel around the world to find just the perfect man to take her virginity. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all of the plot details, but she ends up in Spain, finally finding a man worthy enough to take her virginity. They do. Hey, she's a woman now. Yay, wow. Well, the dude happens to be a bullfighter. So the next day after they make love and he deflowers her, he's in a bullfight. He gets gored by a bull. Now, because he's been gored by this bull, he can no longer perform his manly duties. So that's the end of that. So what does she do? Look, she cares about this guy. She stays with him. She nurses him back to health. She even takes up bullfighting just to try to inspire him to come back and be a bullfighter again, despite the fact that this bull gored him and took his manhood away. Well, long story short, look, lots of boobs, lots of nudity. I believe this movie, it was either rated R or it was NC-17. It was because there was a lot of suggestive material in the movie. It ends with finally her nursing him back to health to the point where he's able to perform again. The movie ends with the two of them making love, doing the do. Hey, everybody leaves the theater happy except anybody who went to the theater to see this shit. You know, a movie is bad when there are boobs all over the place and you still feel like you wasted your money and your time. And that's what this movie was. Terrible plot, terrible movie, terrible. I mean, nothing going for this movie at all. And so that is my number 8. 1984's Bolero.
It's rated R. It's rated R.
Okay. Yeah.
Internet Movie Database rated it a 3.0.
That's generous.
Compared to what I've been seeing, yeah, it's very generous. I hadn't thought of that movie in a while, so I haven't seen it from front to back. I saw just a little bit of it, and it was not going good, so I stopped watching it. You said it. If there's nudity and it's still not good, that's bad, which is a great description for Basic Instinct 2. nudity, and the movie is god awful. It's just
Wow,
bad.
that's too bad because I love Sharon Stone. I loved her in Basic Instinct 1, but I haven't watched Basic Instinct 2 because I did hear it was bad. And
I worked in another theater. I worked in another theater when that came out. It literally was in the theater for like a week and it was gone.
Oh, wow.
That's bad. That's bad.
Well, now you're a Bond guy, and I'm sure you know who Olivia Dabo is.
Oh, yeah. She was in The Living Daylights.
Exactly. Well, there is a young Olivia Dabo in Bolero. She plays Paloma. Her titties are out as well. So, I mean,
also in Conan the
maybe
Destroyer.
you want to watch it just for that, but young
okay.
Olivia Dabo was in this one.
It's the day of the internet. If I really want to see that, you just type in the name and you can find the picture.
Yeah, true.
You don't really have to look up the movie for that.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, save yourself some money and some time.
Exactly. But she was also in Conan the Destroyer.
Oh, okay.
She was the princess that they were trying to save. That was her.
You know what? I remember that now that you're saying it. I haven't watched those movies in a while. I might revisit those. I've thought about having an Arnold festival some weekend.
Yep, that was her.
Okay.
All right. It's so funny, the stuff you just said, because there's a part of it that ties into my number 8. And you did it without even knowing because you have no idea what's on my list. But you did a perfect segue. You just don't realize you did it. My number 8.
Oh, wow.
YouTube.
This is not a surprise at all.
He said it. I'm a James Bond fan. And if you're a James Bond fan, you should already know the movie that this is. This was done during the Roger Moore era, 1979. It is Moonraker. Moonraker is an absolute pile of dung. The worst villain. And it brings back Jaws. Again, spoiler alert, who cares? But fine, spoiler alert. Jaws was in The Spy Who Loved Me, which is actually a good Bond movie. He's an assassin who is a bumbling idiot. He's there for comedic relief. He does the stupidest things. And it's like, how are you an assassin when you're this dumb? I mean, this doesn't speak to all the people you're able to kill because you are an idiot. But he was so loved. I don't know. I can't imagine how many people loved him, but evidently he was very loved. And I think it was one of the filmmakers' daughters, I think they said the story was, that liked that character. And so they brought him back to Moonraker. And because he was so loved, let's just make him a good guy now. And Star Wars had struck the world around this time. So every studio in the world was doing things to go into space. Star Trek, the motion picture, got started because of Star Wars. And they decided, hey, well, let's send James Bond up into space. Special effects in this movie are they're not bad, but at times they're so laughable. It's the classic when you see somebody flying in space, they're stiff, their limbs don't move because it's a doll flying around. It's just so laughable. And of course, the Bond girl, Holly Goodhead. Holly Goodhead. That says everything I ever need to say about this movie. It's so god awful. When I watch Bond movies, I skip this one. Unless I'm doing a Bond marathon, I will sit my ass through it and watch it. Thankfully, it's toward the middle, not the end. So there's plenty of good after the fact, but it's just torture watching this damn thing. It's part of the reason. Rest in peace to Roger Moore. I am sorry, but you are still the worst James Bond. That could change in a few weeks, but you right now are still the worst Bond, and that is why you're my number 8. Roger Moore, James Bond 007, Moonraker, directed by Lewis Gilbert. What a piece of shit.
Wow. Well, not on my list, but I am not the Bond fan that you are. Of course, you've seen every Bond film. To tell you the truth, Roger Moore is the Bond that I came up with. So I've seen most of his, if not all of them, including this one, which, yeah, I do agree is the worst. Obviously, you mentioned it, the success, the incredible, unbelievable success of Star Wars influenced this film along with some others. I guess they thought they could capitalize on it, but instead, it blew up in their faces. So
literally, it blew up in our faces.
Yeah. Wow.
This was successful. This made a lot of money. This is an actually very successful movie. It's the years later in retrospective that people have realized, yeah, that sucked.
Well, it's really too bad because the filmmakers don't care about that. As long as it made money, they're good. That's why we're able to do this podcast, because filmmakers don't really care about quality. If it makes money, we don't care whether it's good or bad, just fill my pockets.
This was very successful.
Wow. All right. Well, if I'm correct, I believe we're up to my number 7.
That is correct.
All right. Well, wow. This one goes back to the late 70s. And I've got a few years on you. I'm 12, 13 years older than you. So when this one came out, I would have been about 12 years old. It's called The Swarm. And it's directed by Irwin Allen, who at the time was known as, he was a very popular director because he was known as the king of disaster films, right?
Yep.
He directed The Towering Inferno. He directed the original Poseidon Adventure. Yeah, there you go. So at this time, there is this craze in the world about the killer bees, these African killer bees.
That.
You remember? Yeah. Yeah. And everybody thought, oh, they're going to make their way to America. They're going to attack Americans, blah, blah, blah. Well, this movie kind of played on that fear and tried to capitalize on that paranoia. So they make this film. And me and your uncle, my uncle, best friend, brother, Kendall, we were jacked up to see this film, Killer Bees. And Irwin Allen is, like I said, a big-time director. Michael Caine is in this film, Richard Widmark, Olivia de Havilland. Now, I know people may not know the names that I'm saying, but these are huge names at the time. Yeah, Henry Fonda, Jane Fonda's father. Yeah, because of the Batman trilogy directed by Nolan.
They should know who he is.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that this was a film that had a good budget and some big time actors in it. A decent special effects, I guess, for the time, 1978. But come on, it's bees. Okay, I don't care. So you'll have scenes where the bees are about to attack and they'll show a shot of the sky and you'll see this big black cloud and it's all these bees coming and they attack school children and they attack a train and cause the train to derail. Man, it's just god awful terrible. You don't care about the people, and you're just sitting there wondering, why am I here? Why am I watching this? And apparently there were hundreds of thousands of bees used in this film, actual bees. They all had their stingers removed. I don't know how you do that. And I don't know how you do that to thousands of bees, but apparently, yeah, they did that so that the actors could interact with these bees so that it would look real, but that they wouldn't get stung. But Olivia de Havilland, one of the actresses I mentioned, she actually did get stung by one of the bees. She didn't die. She didn't have an allergic reaction, but yeah, she did get stung. So somebody didn't do their job on the set. But this movie was just terrible. Look, it's about bees, y'all. It's about bees attacking and killing people. When I was 12, it sounded like a good idea at the time, but it wasn't. And as an adult, it's even worse. So that makes my number 7. The Swarm.
Never saw it. Heard of it, never saw it. So I'm gonna keep that spree going. I'm not gonna be, I'm not gonna look that movie up. I just watched some of the trailers and stuff, and yeah, that looks bad. That looks really bad.
It was.
Poor Michael Caine.
Well, that's why we're doing this podcast.
Caine.
They're all bad.
Yeah, they are. My number 7, and Eric, you will appreciate this one. You and I have made fun of this numerous times. We made fun of this on the most recent Third Generation Wrestling discussion show. I brought this up. Let's just go right to it. This is Transformers to the Revenge of the Fallen. Oh God. I don't even know where to begin with this thing, but there's only one place to begin. One, we'll start with just the fact that, Shia LaDouche is back again. So second time he's been on my list. That doesn't bode very well for him as far as what I think of him as an actor. Not his fault, of course, but still, he's shit. This movie, I am a Transformers guy. I grew up in the G1 era, the old Transformers cartoon show. I have the entire series on DVD. Watched the first Transformers movie, and I was like, I own it, but it's like, it's tolerable, but it's so cliche with a certain person who just happens to have slow motion explosions all the fucking time. I mean, it's a fucking cliche, but that's Michael Bay for you. Everything is just blow up slow motions and it goes over their head. It's just so cliche. But what makes this damn movie bad, and it is the reason Rob started laughing, he knows what I'm about to say.
Go ahead.
How can you make this up? There are 2 Transformers that are Autobots. Eric, I call them Nigabots. We call them Nigabots.
The other night. Yeah, there you go.
I just said it. We call them Nigabots because they have gold teeth, they have chains, they're talking all hip hop and rapping, and I'm like, are you out of your mind? I was in the theater and I saw that and I just looked at it, my jaw dropped. I'm like, oh no. And I left. I could not sit through this. As soon as those Nigabots showed up on that screen, it was time to go. But I actually own this movie on DVD. I bought it and I'm like, okay, I got to see how this ends. And when I bought it, I tried to watch it. And again, I couldn't get past those damn bots. And I'm like, okay, I've got to do, I said I watched all these movies. I was like, I got no choice now. I have got to get through this. And I got through it, but I had to throw my controller away to prevent me from turning it off. And I had to sit far away so I wouldn't just lean up and touch the screen. It's just bad. Those Nigabots are just horrific. They just took the entire movie away. Once the movie got going, it had some good moments at the end, but damn it, those just terrible. Just absolutely terrible. They're the dredge, and it's like, Michael Bay, how did the NAACP not knock on your door after this? I mean, good luck trying to do that now. You're not going to get away with it. So that's my number 7, Transformers, Revenge of the Fallen, thanks to those damn Nigabots. Just, it's you, Rob. You got us number 6.
Well, first of all, I have seen this one, not on my list. I like Michael Bay as a director, at least I did before this film. I think he made some films after this one that I enjoyed, maybe 1 or 2. But I agree with you. I enjoyed the first Transformers outside of Shia LaBeouf. I enjoyed that first one. This one, I believe Optimus Prime, and I quote, I believe he said punk ass Decepticons. And I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
I already paid to get in here, so I'm gonna watch it. But like you, yeah, a huge letdown. I think I swore off of Michael Bay after this one, but I ended up going back. But yeah,
I
man,
swore off
it didn't make my
Transformer
list.
movies. I have never watched a
Yeah,
Transformer movie after this.
that is true. I have not seen any. I never saw any with Mark Wahlberg. I never saw any of those. This was the last Transformer movie that I saw. Yeah, so I did swear off of the Transformers after this. Unfortunately, because like you, I'm a fan of the Transformers, but after what Michael Bay did in this one, I was out. So, all right, my number 6. This is another one. Goes back a ways. I'm a little older than you. Here we go. 1981. I think you've heard of this one though. Mommy Dearest.
Yes, I
Okay,
have.
now this stars Faye Dunaway, who was a big actress in the 70s. I won't say the 80s, 70s. She was in Bonnie and Clyde, which is a great film with her and Warren Beatty, based on
King Kong.
obviously the true life of Bonnie and Clyde. Great film. This one is supposedly a true story. And I say supposedly because
Loosely.
it's based on the book by a lady named Christine Crawford, who is the adopted child of Joan Crawford, who was a big actress in the 40s and 50s. And she tells this horrific story about terrible mental and physical abuse at the hands of this beloved actress who was passed away by the time the movie came out, so she couldn't defend herself. I'm not saying whether or not it's true. Hell, how would I know? But yeah, this movie was supposed to, first of all, look, the movie is a bit disturbing because some of the scenes of abuse are kind of bad, but due to Faye Dunaway's terrible overacting, way over the top acting, it becomes comical. You're supposed to be disturbed by what you're watching and uncomfortable, and in some instances you are, but then in other instances you can't help but laugh because it is so ridiculously over the top. It is so ridiculously overacted. There is a scene in this where she is angry with the child.
I know what you're going to talk about.
Yeah, because this is very famous. She is upset with the child because she has hung up some of her clothes using wire hangers. And so she's screaming at her, "No wire hangers ever!" Right?
Yep.
And I guess it's supposed to be this big dramatic scene in the movie, but people are just cracking up laughing. This movie took on kind of a life of its own. Now, you're a Rocky Horror Picture Show fan, right?
Mm-hmm.
This movie kind of became a thing where people would come to the theater with wire hangers and they would watch the movie.
I didn't know that.
I'm not kidding. I am not kidding.
I didn't know
they would come to the theater with wire hangers and they would quote the film and they would quote that scene. It just became comical. Faye Dunaway's career never really recovered from it. She would refuse to do interviews about this film. It was so laughable. It was so terrible. And later on, she wrote a book where she just briefly referenced this film, saying that, well, I think she blamed it on the director, saying that, well, I think a filmmaker or a director needs to know how to rein in their actors. So basically, she's saying that, well, the director should have told me I was overacting. Look, maybe you just should have known you were overacting. Either way, all of that made this just a horrible, terrible movie, unintentionally funny, disturbing at times, but unintentionally funny, and just one of the worst movies ever in my estimation. And that is why it is my number 6.
It's interesting, the no wire hangers line, because a list I've been working on from the beginning of this show is the greatest movie quotes ever. And it is the most difficult list, which is why I'm still working on it. Literally, I thought of this list at the very, very beginning, and I'm still working on this list. That, though, made the list of AFI's most memorable lines in movie history was the no wire hangers. That made the list for them, was
It
that
did,
line.
memorable for all of the wrong reasons, but memorable nonetheless.
But it's what you think of. As soon as you hear the
Right.
words "Mommy Dearest," that is what you think of. And if with
Yeah, exactly.
everything that movie got wrong, at least they're remembered for something. At
Right.
least you're remembered for something. That's more than some folks could hope. But yeah,
True.
my number 6. Uh, there's just no good lead into this. I'm just going to show it here on YouTube. There you go. It's there on YouTube for you people to see it. It is Star
Oh,
Wars Phantom Menace
Oh, boy.
Episode 1.
Oh, boy.
Okay. This thing, again, I worked in a movie theater when this came out, and we had to have meetings about this movie because we knew what was going to happen. Now, it didn't even play at my theater that I worked at. It wasn't even there. But they sent us over to help the theater that was going to be playing it. And it was a good few days before the movie was even released. And there were people already camped out. I'm like, oh boy. Now, I was blessed. I got to see that thing long before the public did. But we had to keep our mouth shut. We couldn't say a word. We couldn't tell anybody we were going to watch it. We couldn't tell anybody what was happening in it. We could not admit we were going to see that movie. And it was the biggest hush-hush secret I had, because here's Rob, Star Wars fan, hyped as hell, can't wait. And I couldn't say a word to him that I was going to watch this movie. I don't even know if you knew that story, that I was completely hushed up. I couldn't say a word.
No.
Yeah, I couldn't say a word.
No, I didn't know.
And oh God, I wanted to say something after I watched it. Jar Jar Binks. Quite possibly one of the worst movie characters in history. And he's in every single frame, nearly, literally. You can't escape him for like 2 minutes, it seems. He's just everywhere. Being stupid. I can tolerate stupid characters. Dumb and Dumber to me is hysterical. But this is just another level of dumb. This is the how can you be that dumb? It's not even funny dumb. It's just dumb. And of course, the ethnicities that they were doing in this movie, just like Transformers, it kind of had a problem with it. Star Wars did the same thing. There was a race clearly taken from Asian. Unfortunately, Jar Jar kind of represented Black folk, kind of around, I would say, maybe Jamaican, around that kind of area, maybe, possibly. But either way, it
was a black man who provided his voice. So there you go.
Well, they all acted like this. So they were all you could tell they were black. But the trailer, again, it did everything right. It showed the lightsaber duel at the end, which is awesome. The pod race scene, awesome. Showing us Darth Maul, awesome.
Yep.
Showing us Liam Neeson, awesome. Showing us a young Obi-Wan Kenobi, awesome. But that was it. Annie, the kid that's supposed to become Darth Vader, you're calling him Annie. I'm like, okay, this is one of the greatest movie villains in history. You're calling him Annie. I'm sorry, how am I supposed to fear this character later on down the line when you're calling him Annie? So this movie was just so bad, so torturous, and I was like, this trilogy is going to be terrible. But each movie did get better, thank God. I mean, it couldn't get worse. But
yeah,
Star Wars Phantom Menace, just an absolutely terrible movie. And of course, who was at the helm? of this movie. There's your reason right there. George Lucas. He's a genius behind the scenes at times, but when he leads a project, it tends to be shit. Not always, but man, I don't know what it is with him. He just cannot lead a project as the director. He just can't do it. I don't know why, but Phantom Menace, my number 6. I know you're going to have something to say about Phantom Menace.
Yeah, it didn't make my list, but once again, and this isn't a sequel. It is a sequel, but I mean, technically it's episode 1, but it came after episodes 4, 5, and 6, which the original Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, which is by far the best in the series, and then Return of the Jedi. So, man, I'm pumped up. We're going to see another Star Wars film, and I like Liam Neeson. And I wait in line because that's how it is when a Star Wars film's come out. You wait in line and you get in there. I saw the trailer like you did, and I thought, wow, man, the trailer looks pretty good.
Duel of the Fates music.
Right.
Love that song.
Hey, come on. Yeah, come on. So I'm in there. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, wow, this kid. Okay, Annie, like you said, they're calling him Annie. We know this kid becomes Darth Vader. Come on, don't call him Annie. Just Anakin. What's wrong with just calling him Anakin? You've already spoke about Jar Jar Binks. I don't want to get too negative or racial about it, but let's face it. And then there were some other characters. There was a character very reminiscent that some people felt was very reminiscent of Middle Easterns. And this is not me saying this. This is what other people were saying. He had an exaggerated nose, an exaggerated Middle Eastern accent. A lot of people were accusing George Lucas, of being, of being stereotypical or racist. I see the point. I don't know whether it was intentional or not, but it was there. I don't think you can deny that it was there. So that was all uncomfortable. The pod race, Darth Maul, awesome. Luckily, it had those things in the movie. Otherwise, this would have been probably a complete disaster. It probably would have ended the Star Wars franchise because this film was so bad. But like I said, a couple of redeeming social qualities. But yeah, man, this one was bad. This, I think you did a podcast, or maybe I think it was Eric and I did one on our show on Star Wars Day. And I did one too. You agree? I think, well, I don't know if you agree, but I think most people agree that this is probably the worst in the Star Wars series.
I said it was the worst.
Oh, you did? Okay. All right. So even worse than, I guess, it makes sense because, okay. So good. So we're all in agreement. Phantom Menace, by far the worst in the Star Wars series. Luckily, it wasn't the last one. But yeah, this one, man.
They George even ruined Lucas. The ending. They ruined the ending. I don't know if you knew about this. The soundtrack that came out before the movie, the last track on there, Qui-Gon's End. It tells me right there he's going to die.
Okay.
So I already knew going in that he was going to die. I already knew it.
See, I didn't know that, but obviously this is episode 1, and he wasn't in episodes 4, 5, and 6. So I figured, I didn't know he would die before episode 2, but I knew he wouldn't make it to I knew he would die sooner or later. But I hadn't heard that.
Do you have to put that name of the track? You could have named that a whole lot. That's telling me, that's telegraphing. Okay, so you're going to kill him off. That means that Obi-Wan is going to start training him in the second movie, and Liam Neeson is dead. Okay, well, I can't get invested now in Liam because you're going to kill him. So,
yeah, man. Like I said, George Lucas. We talked about it with Indiana Jones. Same thing with Star Wars. Just sometimes he just can't get out. He's a genius, but sometimes just can't get out of his own way. All right. Well, my number 5 is going to be one you're very familiar with. We all did a podcast about it. It's Ready to Rumble. Yeah.
Sorry, Eric.
And I believe it's from 2000, or is it 2002? I can't remember.
It's 2000.
I had never seen this one. This was another one I didn't want to see. But we were going to do a podcast. We're trying to do wrestling films. So here we go. I got to watch it. Well, damn. pretty much most movies with David Arquette, I'm not crazy about him as an actor. I feel like pretty much most movies that he's in are not going to be that great. I own a couple of them, like the Scream series.
Scream
Okay,
series
great.
is very good.
And this is a guilty pleasure of mine. I even own Eight-Legged Freaks. All right. Giant spiders. How can you not like that?
That's bad.
It is bad, but like I said, a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, it's
okay, but this one, wow. I love wrestling. We all know that. The podcast I do. All right. He and Scott Conn star as Gordy and Sean, big wrestling fans like us. Hey, their favorite wrestler, Jimmy King, gets cheated out of his title by DDP and the promoter played by Joe Pantoliano. So they want to make it right. And they want to bring him, I guess, out of retirement. They want him to win his title back. These guys are sewage workers, which, of course, leads to so many crude jokes.
Dookie.
Yeah. We see a highway full of shit. The movie starts off with David Arquette sticking his finger up his own ass, all in an effort to just get a free drink. Like, you couldn't have thought of a better way to hustle a free drink than to do that.
It worked.
It did work, okay? But man, I mean, Rose McGowan is in this, and there is I don't know if you'd call it a love scene between her and David Arquette.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I mean, but it's kind of awkward and uncomfortable to watch. It's just, it's like this whole movie, pretty much awkward and uncomfortable to watch. The best thing about this movie is at the end, the wrestling scene, which isn't all that great, but it's still the best part of this movie, which tells you how bad the movie was. It's an hour and a half of my life I'll never get back. It's brain cells that I've lost that are gone forever. But it is what it is. And so that's why it makes my number 5. I'll never watch this again. There's no reason. I feel very bad that I had to watch it at all. Just an absolutely horrible movie, Ready to Rumble.
Sorry, Eric. In a way, I feel like we're kind of shitting on him a little bit. No holds barred, Ready to Rumble, Mortal Kombat Annihilation.
Look, I don't think he liked any of those movies. He might have liked Annihilation.
He liked Mortal Kombat. Yes, he did. He liked Annihilation. And he liked
but that's not on my list. It's not on my list. So if anybody's shitting on him, it's you, not me.
Well, but you do have Ready to Rumble.
I don't think he liked that one though.
No, he didn't like that one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
He forgot how bad it was, I think is what he had said.
Right.
All right. My number 5. In some ways, it's painful that this is number 5 because it involves something that I love more than Star Wars. It's right there on par with Batman, James Bond. So if you know me, you should probably already know where I'm going. For those on YouTube, Star Trek 5, Final Frontier.
Oh.
I am an obsessed Star Trek fan. I am a Trekker through and through. I love Star Trek. This was in 1989. I think William Shatner, who I call the Shat, is a god. I have a picture with that man, which I spent $90 to go to a show and to get that picture. The picture was $50, and I would do it again because it's the Shat. William Shatner directed this movie, and it is utter shit. It is by far, and this even includes as far as that new batch, I only saw the first one. I would rather watch that than watch Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. It is the most god-awful, brainless, mindless, worthless, absolutely has no point existing in the Star Trek universe movie that has ever occurred. How can I describe this plot? I mean, essentially, Spock's brother takes the Enterprise for himself, takes the crew hostage. He has this ability where he can make people kind of obey him, not in a slave way, just make them understand. It's a weird plot. He's basically hypnotizing them. They're on a mission to find God at the center of the universe. That's the plot.
God
at the center of the universe. He's a Vulcan, but he's an emotional Vulcan. So he's a little different than Spock. He's way more emotional. And they're trying to find God at the center of the universe. What else can I say? That's the plot. God at the center of the universe. As soon as I heard Cybok, who's the character, say, I'm like, God? What? God? We're bringing religion into this? Because they've hinted to religion here and there, but not like this. This was just so blatant. And again, I don't have a problem with people that are religious, not at all. But this was so out of place in Star Trek. It just didn't work, and it didn't help the bad comedy that was in this movie. There was a lot of bad comedy. Now, Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, is also comedic, but they did that right. It was funny, and it worked. This was terrible. And of all of William Shatner's projects, this is the one that it is so painful to look at. I own TJ Hooker series on DVD. I know people shit all over that show. I love TJ Hooker. I could watch that all day long, no problems. He was in Miss Congeniality. I can watch that. Doesn't bother me. But this movie, and it's all on Shatner. He directed it, so he was he wrote the story, was him. He wrote this story. This came from his head. Shit. And it's the only stain to me on that great man that is the Shat. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier, which thankfully would be his final directorial in a Star Trek movie. I love you, Shat, but my God, you took years off my life watching this thing. I sat through every frame in the theater, but man, there was about 3 or 4 times I nearly got up and left. But I sat through it. But even to this, I just can't watch this thing. It's just bad. It's so bad. Star Trek V. Uhura's naked in this.
Who? Oh, is she?
You don't see anything.
Well, how old is she?
Old enough where you don't want to see her naked. I mean, you don't see anything. But
I don't know. Maybe, I don't know.
But they hint to it that she's naked. It's like, no. Back in the day,
weird.
Yes. It's just weird. It's so weird. Star Trek.
Well, I have never seen the film. Believe it or not, I've never seen any of the Star Trek films except for the Chris Pine ones, which I know you hate. I'm just trying to figure out the connection between Uhura's nudity and God. But you know what? I'll just pass, and I just won't watch it. I'll take your word for it that it was bad.
Yeah, it's just bad, bro. It's
all right. Bad. Well, look, man, we're up to my number 4. We're getting to the nitty gritty here. And man, look, we all know Eddie Murphy is a comic genius. At least I feel that way.
Oh, no.
But come on, man. There is no excuse for the adventures of Pluto Nash. Okay? No excuse whatsoever. Yeah. Now, the budget of this movie, and maybe most of it went to Eddie's salary because Eddie could still command a large salary before this film. The budget of this movie was $100 million. Yeah. $100 million. The box office gross was $7 million. Yep, this is one of the biggest financial disasters in cinematic history. Now, the plot, if you want to call it that, it's 2080. And apparently there's a colony on the moon called Little America. Pluto Nash, a businessman played by Eddie, buys a club, or there was a club on Little America. He buys a club, makes the club pretty successful. Hey, well, 7 years later, beautiful, we talked about her, beautiful Rosario Dawson comes. She's the daughter of one of Eddie Murphy's friends, Pluto Nash's friends. And she's stranded on the moon. So she's like, I need to get back to Earth, So Eddie hires her to work in the bar, earn some money, she can get back to Earth. All of that, really none of it matters because Rex Crater, a businessman on the moon, wants to buy the club. The club is successful, he wants to buy the club. Well, Pluto doesn't want to sell the club. So look, it's kind of a sci-fi comedy action flick, supposedly. So all of the Crater's henchmen come after Eddie, trying to kill Eddie, trying to kill Rosario, we want the club. Man, I tell you what, I could have cared less about any of it because it was so bad, so terrible to watch. Look, special effects, were there some? I mean, I guess. I mean, yeah, there were some. But did it make the movie any better? Hell no. Did the beautiful Rosario Dawson make this movie any better, any more tolerable to watch? Well, you know what? She's beautiful a little bit, but not much.
A little.
Not much, though. Eddie Murphy,
but a little.
Hell no. I'm sorry. This movie was a complete waste of time, waste of money. I'm surprised. You know what? I think after this film, look, Eddie made some films after this that I've watched and that I've enjoyed. But I think for most people, this was it as far as Eddie Murphy. This was it. I'm a hardcore Eddie fan. So I have watched some of his stuff after this, like I said, and I've enjoyed it, but
he made it rougher. He made it a little rougher.
He did. After this movie, I don't think Eddie's career was quite the same. Eddie used to be box office gold. If Eddie Murphy was in a movie, it made money. After this, I think people said, nope.
He's kind of on the climb back up, though. He's at least lately, he's kind of been going back on the right direction, but he'll never reach the level that he was. But at least he's going wasn't, up
but
now.
And I agree. And you know what? To his credit, look, because Eddie Murphy's been around since the 80s. So the fact that if he can still make a movie and people come and see it, that's a credit to him. Like I said, dude is a comedic genius. I didn't think I would, but I enjoyed The Second Coming to America. But this one, Eddie's lucky that this did not completely ruin his career and that he is so beloved, because this movie was absolute garbage, a waste of time and money. My number 4, The Adventures of Pluto Nash.
Yeah, I was waiting on that one to come up. I've actually never seen it front to back. The trailer never interested me. That's why I just stayed away. I was like, there's just no reason for me to watch this. And then I heard the backlash. I'm like, yep, glad I didn't waste my eyes.
Don't do it.
It's not even on my list. I can't even have it as an honorable mention because I didn't watch it. All right. These top 4 have been kind of rough for me because a few of these I kept switching around because these are some really, really shitty movies. Just absolute, if it's a choice between this movie and The Bullet, I may consider The Bullet because these are just that bad.
Yeah.
Number 4, part of a franchise that was very successful in the beginning, and dear God, it did not end well. And it has a guy in it that we named earlier, Michael Caine.
Oh, wow.
Jaws, The Revenge. Oh boy, This is truly one of the worst movies ever put to film. That's just, it's not hyperbole. This movie is bad. The Jaws franchise, legendary, obviously. We've talked about it before on the show. I think I had it on my horror movie list. I think you said you would have had it on your horror movie list as well. I think you named it as one of your favorite movies of all time, Jaws.
Mm-hmm.
Jaws 2, not as good as 1, still very watchable. You don't like Jaws 3. I find it funny in a good way. So I own the first 3. I don't own the 4th one, and I could have got that one for free, and I still said no because I bought all the Jaws movies when Blockbuster Video that was near me was closing, and they were selling all their DVDs for like $2. So I bought the first 3, and they're like, "Hey, we'll just throw in Jaws: The Revenge. You can have it for free." I'm like, I don't even want that thing for free. And I knew why they were doing it because they knew nobody was going to buy that thing.
Yeah, man, come on.
The plot, I mean, obviously it's a shark that eats people, but that's always been what it is. It's just a shark that eats people. But they decided to give the shark a little bit more of a backstory, I guess. This shark is on a quest for vengeance. Goodness knows that's what sharks do. They go out on quests of vengeance to eat people. This shark is dedicated and determined to kill the Brody family. Why, I don't know. You didn't know any of the other sharks that got blown up and electrocuted. But this shark wants to kill the Brody and follows them to a Caribbean climate where sharks can't live. They cannot live in those waters. It scientifically, they can't survive. But this shark somehow, I don't know, maybe took a potion or something, and follows Lorraine Gray, who plays Ellen Brody, who's visiting Lance Guest, who plays Michael Brody, to the Caribbean. And she's got this psychic link to the shark. It's so bad. She literally can sense when the shark is near. They're mind connected. It's so bad. Mario Van Peebles is also in this, and spoiler alert, but who cares? Mario actually dies, but somehow, I mean, literally, there's a scene where he falls in the shark's mouth. I mean, when the shark's biting you, you're dead. He fell in its mouth. Instant death. You're dead. But at the very end, you see him floating around. And this is after the shark. I'll get to what happened to the shark here in a second. This is after what happened to that shark at the end of this movie. He somehow survives. Not really a scratch on him, just painted in blood, but you don't really see scratches. He's not missing any limbs, even though he fell in a shark. Okay, whatever. The most legendary scene in this movie involves good old Michael Caine. This scene has become the stuff of legend. He's an airplane pilot, and Ellen Brody has stolen a boat, going out to chase him, and Michael and Mario, they all go out to try to find her. They find her. Now, this plane can land in the water. It's one of those. He lands it. They go to her. Now, he steps out, and the shark pops up, and Michael's like, oh, shit. It's like, yeah, shit.
Exactly.
He dives into the plane, and the shark starts to eat the plane. Now, we've seen the shark eat a helicopter. Jaws 2, he ate a helicopter. So it's like, okay, I'll let this go. Okay, you killed off Michael Caine. Fine, whatever. Minutes later, Michael Caine pops up onto the boat. Fine, he survives, but he's bone dry. He just got out of the water. He is he's wearing even a white t-shirt, and he's bone dry. The filmmaker said they had filmed the scene so much that they didn't notice that he had dried. I'm like, Shouldn't that have been the first thing you noticed?
Yeah.
You had him pop out of the water. Water. You couldn't just spray him. We'd have let it go, but whatever. Last thing on this movie, I said I'd get to the shark. The death scene of this shark. They rigged this device that hurts the shark's ears. And this shark starts to pop out of the water. Head first pops up. And it starts roaring like a lion, which I don't think sharks roar, but okay, whatever, it's your movie. And then the shark starts sticking more out of the water, and literally this shark is, his tip of his fin is holding him up. He's completely out of the water when Ellen Brody pile drives the mast, the pole at the front of that damn boat, right into it, and there's two different endings. One, the shark just spits out blood. The other, it blows up. Now, at this point, Mario Van Peebles is in there. He's in the shark. So he should have been impaled. He should have blown up. But he survives. This movie is so torturous. I watched this thing again. My God, this thing, it's 10 times worse. Than every time I see it, it gets worse. This thing is just bad. It's so terrible. I don't know what weed, what they were drinking, what they were smoking when they wrote this script. They had to hand this to a kid. But Jaws 4, The Revenge, it could easily be number 1. It's such shit. But it's my number 4. And that just tells you how bad the movies above it are, that this is 4.
Well, you know what? This is perfect. And I think this is the first time we have agreed that we have a common movie on our list. It's my number 3. So I don't have to say much more. But what I will say is that you referenced it earlier. Jaws is my number 2 movie of all time. Jaws came out, and I believe it was 1975, 76. So that would have made me 9 or 10 years old. Maybe 77, I think it came out, actually, 77. So it'd make me 10, 11 years old. The most frightening movie I had ever seen at the time. And this is before there was cable television. You had to go to the theater if you wanted to see this movie. I begged my parents to let me go see this movie. I went to see it 4 times. I begged for them to let me go see this movie. They had to shell out money, but I love this movie so much. It just was such an incredible experience, this movie. It scared me. It frightened me. I loved all the characters, Matt Hooper, Roy Scheider's character, Chief Brody. So here's why. Look, and Jaws 2, you referenced Jaws 2. I enjoyed Jaws 2. Look, a drop off from Jaws 1, but look, Jaws 1 is a classic of all time. So it's a little, even if it's a drop off. Yeah. Jaws 2 I own Jaws 2 on Blu-ray. I enjoy it. Jaws 3D is a guilty pleasure. I don't own it. I am going to buy it. But it is a guilty pleasure. But
Louis Gossett Jr.
Louis Gossett Jr. is Calvin Bouchard. Love it. But this one, what drew me in is it had Lorraine Gary, who was in the original. All right. She was Ellen Brody. And I'm like, wow, if she's in it, it must have been a good script. If they got her to appear in this one, because she hadn't appeared in 2 or 3.
She was fucking the producer. That's the only reason she was in it.
And Michael Caine and Mario Van Peebles, who I was a fan of. And I have to say real quickly, rest in peace, Melvin Van Peebles, Mario's father. He passed away today. He made one of the first blaxploitation movies ever called Sweet Black's Badass Revenge.
Yeah.
I own that movie. Look, it's not good. It's not very good. Okay.
It's terrible.
I'm just gonna but Mario did he made a movie called Badass, which is about the making of that movie. That movie is great. You should watch that. But unfortunately, yeah, the original, not very good. But anyway, back to Jaws, The Revenge. So I'm psyched to go see this one. Lorraine Gary's in it. But then I get in there and I find out, oh, wow, okay. So the plot of the movie is she is convinced that a great white shark is trying to kill her entire family. Okay, she's a widow. Martin Brody has died of a heart attack. I guess the stress of all of this shark business has caused him to have a heart attack.
More like the shot, more like
right.
He read the script.
Right. And then the youngest son apparently has been killed by a shark. The oldest son works in the Bahamas as a marine biologist or some shit. And so, yeah, apparently she just like you said, has this ability to believe the shark is trying to kill the entire family. Long story short, she tries to kill the shark with this boat. Michael Caine plays Hoagie, who is who kind of has a thing for her. He you know, he's attracted to her. He's an older man and she's an older woman. He's attracted to her. Mario Van Peebles plays the assistant to Ellen Brody's son. Look, man. I've said this countless times on this podcast. You cannot have a sequel to a movie that I love and have it be this bad. I already spoke about Jaws 2. A decent sequel to one of the greatest movies ever. Jaws 3, not very good, but a guilty pleasure. This one, just absolute garbage and bullshit. I'm not going to go on about it because you went on about it and you were right on point with it. But yeah, this is my number 3, Jaws the Revenge, an absolute train wreck of a movie. It just bothers me that this has to be associated with the rest of the Jaws franchise because it was so bad.
They keep talking of doing another one, a reboot or a remake of Jaws.
Look, definitely do not do a remake. You cannot top the original. Steven Spielberg is a genius. There's no way you can top the original. If you want to do some sort of prequel or try to do a sequel, fine. Do not do a remake. You can't touch the original.
We'll see if they end up doing it. But you said previously that we finally shared one. Well, guess what? We're about to share another one, and you knew this movie was going to appear.
Oh, okay.
Ready to Rumble. And I am not going to spend a lot of time on this turd. Yeah, I will say I had avoided this movie for quite a while, or not quite a while, but enough. I was dating a girl named Teresa. I explained this also on Third Generation Wrestling when we reviewed this turd. Me and her used to have movie nights at home where we would watch a movie that I owned. We would watch it together, and then the next one would be hers. A lot of couples do this. You just try, it's just a bonding type thing. Well, she pulled out the VHS tape. That's how far back this was.
Ooh, wow.
For Ready to Rumble. And she held it in front of me, and I'm like, oh no. Because I had avoided this thing like a plague. I knew it is got to be shit. And I'm sitting there watching that movie with her, and I had no words. It was so bad. And then it got to the love scene, and I had to look away because the movie was so bad. It was starting to hurt my eyes, legitimately hurting my eyes. It was so bad that I just looked away. And when we ended up watching it, I ended up doing the same thing because it was just so bad. I had to look away just for a few seconds. So I'm sorry, Eric. But yeah, Ready to Rumble is just an absolute torture fest. I'm not going to spend any more time on that turd. You said everything. It's my number 3. So
yeah.
What is your number 2, the runner-up of shit?
Wow, this is tough. My number 2, I don't know if you've ever seen it because it came out in 1987. And it stars, look, he's controversial right now. But as a child, I always had a lot of admiration for him. The movie is Leonard Part 6.
Oh God.
Now, this movie, and you're a James Bond fan. This movie is supposed to be a parody of spy movies.
Totally.
Now, even though it's called Leonard Part 6, there was not a parts 1 through 5. Thank God.
Thank God.
Because Part 6 is one of the worst films ever. But Bill Cosby stars as Leonard Parker, a retired CIA agent who is brought out of retirement to bring down a lady, a vegetarian. Let me read it just to make sure I have it right. Okay. He's called out of retirement to save the world from an evil vegetarian. Her name is Medusa Johnson.
Yep.
Okay. She brainwashes animals to kill people.
Yep.
Now, in order to do this, he has to break into her headquarters, which is called the International Tuna Factory. Now, look, I'm just going to leave that there and let all of the listeners, make their own decisions on that one. Okay? He breaks into the factory. He brings down all of the vegetarians. And look, we're talking about Bill Cosby here. And he brings down the vegetarians by using magic meat.
Melted butter.
Once again, I'm just going to leave that there. But I will say that given what we've heard about Bill Cosby, magic meat is not a term that is appropriate at this time. But it's in the film, so I've got to reference it. So he saves the day, and he escapes the headquarters by riding on a giant ostrich across the roof, and the ostrich flies to the ground. Anyone with a half a brain knows that ostrich is one of the largest birds in the world. They don't fly. They can't fly. There are just certain things that you wish you hadn't seen, that you just wish you could erase from your mind, from your brain, but you can't. And this movie is one of them. I've seen lots of Bill Cosby's movies. I like Bill Cosby. And I probably shouldn't say that right now. When I'm saying that, I'm talking about the Bill Cosby that I grew
wrong with
up
that.
with.
You're talking about his work.
Right. Yeah. But as far as the allegations, look, I do not approve of that. He got what he deserved. And I know he's out now, but it's a technicality. I'm going to leave that alone. But I do not approve of what he did. But I also do not approve of this movie. And I'm not equating this movie with the allegations. I want to make that clear. But this movie was... There's just no excuse. And I didn't mention this. Bill wrote and produced this movie. Yep. He didn't direct it, but he did write and produce it.
Yep.
But to Bill's credit, and like I said, given some of the things we know about Bill, I'm not sure credit and Bill are two words that should go together. But when this movie came out, it was widely criticized, panned by the critics. And I think most people who are movie fans know, look, to show our appreciation for movies, there are the Academy Awards, right? That's like the upper echelon of appreciation for a movie. Well, there's also the opposite end of the spectrum, which are the Golden Raspberry Awards, known as the Razzies. So obviously, Leonard Part 6 is nominated for multiple Razzies. So to his credit, Bill Cosby actually showed up to accept his. and admitted that the movie was bad. Shortly before the movie came out, he told people it was bad. He told them not to go see the movie, even though he had produced and wrote it.
Yep.
So take his advice. Don't watch it. Don't watch it. Don't do that to yourself. My number 2, Leonard Part 6. Thank God there weren't parts 1 through 5.
Oh God. Leonard Part 6 is on my dishonorable mentions.
Okay.
And I did rewatch that movie. That is one of the movies I did rewatch. Oh God, that thing is bad.
Too bad, man.
That thing is bad. It is so bad. It has not aged very well. It was really bad then. It's even worse now. So
yeah.
Leonard Parts. Stupidly, I was a kid. That movie came out in '87, and I was still believing in the Bill Cosby hype because love the Cosby Show, Fat Albert. I just didn't think Bill Cosby could Jello. I just didn't think the man could do anything wrong.
Coke.
Then I saw Coke, but then
Coca-Cola.
I watched this Coca-Cola. Yeah, Coca-Cola. But then saw this with melted butter and throwing patties and beat into computers, and they somehow short circuit and being tormented by maniacal lobster. It's so bad. It's just his spy outfit that he has on. It's just, there's just no redeeming qualities in this movie at all. It should not exist. It just shouldn't exist. All right.
My brain still hurts.
Mine hurts from watching that about 3-4 weeks ago. My number 2 and runner-up. There's a certain franchise that has been not exactly celebrated for not getting it right. And one of these is the video game franchise.
Oh boy.
It just cannot get it right. Most of the time, it just fails. And sadly, all of this got started with one movie. Super Mario Brothers. Oh dear God. Super Mario Brothers. I grew up in the age of Nintendo. I'm a Nintendo kid. I played Atari, but I grew up when Nintendo started to show up here in the United States. And obviously, Mario is the flagship. When you think of the video game franchise industry, Mario has got to be the first person you think of. So when I heard it was going to be a Mario Brothers movie, as a kid, I'm going to be hyped. I'm going to be excited. I'm going to watch it. No problem admitting that. I was so hyped sitting to watch this movie. I couldn't wait. I remember sitting in my chair just kind of bouncing. I was so excited to watch this movie. And Bob Hoskins, I think, is a great choice as Mario. I thought he looks like who Mario would be. John Leguizamo's Luigi. I was like, okay, I can get with that. I can see where you're going with this. I'm okay with that. Dennis Hopper is Koopa. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I'm kind of curious where that's going to go. And then the movie starts. And I see where they're going to go with this as a parallel universe. Okay, that's a good way to introduce the Goombas and the weird world of Mario. But this movie is, without a shadow of a doubt, if suicide was an option, and I'm not joking on suicide, but I was getting real close when I was sitting there watching this movie. Real close. This is brutal. The scenes stuff that happened during the making of this movie, y'all need to look it up, because what was happening behind the scenes really explains why this movie is shit. The writing team kept getting switched around. they would be filming a scene and it was written a certain way, and then they'd be told, okay, it just got rewritten. Now we're doing it this way. And that would happen all the time. Certain actors just said, fuck it, and just started doing whatever the hell they want. Bob Hoskins brought liquor on the set and said most of the time we were drinking because there was nothing else to do. So we just started drinking. And rest in peace to Bob Hoskins, who passed away.
Yeah, without a doubt.
But when he got interviewed, I remember watching this. It is so hysterical. The reporter couldn't even get the words out of his mouth. What is the worst movie you? Bob stopped him right away. Just said Super Mario Brothers. He couldn't even finish the sentence. Bob said it immediately, and he called it the most horrible piece of shit I've ever seen. John doesn't disagree with it. He calls it absolute garbage. Dennis Hopper, rest in peace. I think he passed away. Am I right on that?
Yeah, he ill many years ago. Yeah.
Okay. He called it an absolute horrible dumpster fire. Oh God. This was the start of the video game franchise movies, was this horrible thing. And it set the tone because everything nearly after this has been just god awful. You can count on one hand how many were good. Mortal Kombat. I actually like the first Resident Evil movie. That kind of does it. The new Mortal Kombat I'd put on there too, even though there's a character who's fucking annoying. But this movie just made absolutely no sense. It's just terrible. The rewrites are all over the place. It has a dark look to it because it was originally written with a dark tone. Bruce Willis was originally going to be in this movie. I don't know if you knew that.
No, I did not.
Bruce Willis was going to show up in a Shaft, like Die Hard. That he was going to be in a scene just like that in this movie. The set, you will like this. Remember the steel plant in Terminator 2?
Oh, yeah.
The same place. This movie is filmed in that same place. Same spot.
Wow.
Is where T2 was filmed for that scene. This movie is filmed. It's just so bad, so terrible. And I did rewatch this, and oh God, I nearly took a fork and gouged my eyeballs out. Super Mario Brothers, an unmitigated piece of shit. And Mario, they've never gone back to the movies with Mario. They keep wanting to do another Mario movie, but Nintendo has been very strong that they have control, not Hollywood. And it's Hollywood's fault that this movie is so bad. So, number 2, Super Mario Brothers. I don't know if you ever saw that turd.
Thank God, no. And I've referenced this on many of our wrestling podcasts. I'm not a video game guy. And it's not because I don't like video games. Sadly, I just suck at video games. So since I suck at them, I don't buy them. I don't play them. Apparently, I'm missing out on something, but I have no eye-hand coordination or whatever it takes to play video games. I don't have it. So luckily, I've never seen that one. But I have heard many others say that was a absolute piece of garbage. So I can see why that would make your list. So I guess we're up to my number 1. And I believe this is going to be the most recent movie that I have on my list. And here's the worst thing about it. This was a movie I hadn't heard of, but I watched it because I had heard that it was so bad. And I have morbid curiosities. I have guilty pleasures. So I'm like, can it really be that bad? Well, yes. Yes, it can. And this movie is from 2003, and it's called The Room.
Oh.
I don't know if you're familiar with this film. Okay, but it is written, produced, and directed by a guy named Tommy Wiseau.
Oh boy.
Okay, Tommy Wiseau is not really famous. What he is known for are terribly bad movies. This one of the absolute worst movies of all time. I mean, absolutely. This is a movie, in doing research for it, this movie had a $6 million budget. Now, where in the fuck did they spend that $6 million? Because watching this movie, you cannot see that. This movie has no actors of note who you would recognize. There are no elaborate sets. There are no special effects. It stars also Tommy Wiseau, who plays Johnny. He's a banker. He has a fiance. They're in love, but his best friend is messing around with his fiance. So that love triangle is kind of the main plot. And for those listening and not watching, I'm using air quotes when I say plot, and I'm using a lot of air quotes when I say plot. But there are some subplots. I'm also using many air quotes when I say that. The fiance's mother is in the movie. She has breast cancer. We're talking some of the worst, most wooden acting you've ever seen. We're talking clunky dialogue. We're talking awkward love scenes. Sometimes it appears that when they're talking, I don't know if you've ever seen those old Korean martial arts films where there is extremely bad dubbing. You know, they're speaking in Korean, but they're trying to translate it to English. And
it has that feel.
Yeah. They're speaking English, but for some reason, a lot of times when Tommy Wiseau is speaking, it's like the audio doesn't match his mouth. This movie has absolutely nothing going for it. Horrible acting, horrible directing, horrible script, unintentionally funny. Now, Tommy Wiseau claims that all of this was intentional. He meant for the film to be this way. I don't believe it. Most people who watch it or who have seen it don't believe it. It is just a terrible, god-awful piece of garbage. Okay? That's just what it is. The movie is so bad. I mentioned the $6 million budget. The box office of this movie, $1,900. That's what the movie made when it was released in theaters. Now, because the movie is so legendarily bad, in DVD, this movie is even on Blu-ray. You can even buy this movie on Blu-ray. It is so legendarily bad that it has an actual cult following.
Yep.
People have watched this movie. People, if you go to Amazon, you will see this movie rated as 4.5 stars. Not because it's great, but because it is so incredibly bad. Yeah.
People buy it.
Exactly. So it's so bad that in 2017, James Marsden, who is a pretty well-known actor, he was in some of the X-Men movies, the early X-Men movies. He starred as Tommy Wiseau in this movie. I believe I said it was called The Disaster Artist. This movie was made about the making of this horrible, terrible movie. Now, unlike the actual movie, the movie about the making of this terrible movie was actually well received by the critics. It won some awards. It received good critical reviews. So also because of that, it has enhanced the legend, if you want to call it that, of this incredibly, incredibly terrible film. All of the other films on my list, look, were they bad? I mean, they all were bad. But the thing about those movies is you could tell that the movie maker, they were trying to do something with the film. It just went wrong somewhere. When you watch this film, you have no idea what they were trying to do with it. It's like this guy got together with a bunch of his friends and said, I'm going to make a movie. Do you want to be in it? It'd be like if I asked you or Eric and Blake and said, I'm making a movie. Do you guys want to be in it? I don't care if you can't act. It doesn't matter. Do you want to be in it? That's what this movie looks like. That's what it plays out like. Now, I don't want to encourage people to watch it because it is so unbelievably bad. And I know that by telling people how bad it is, there are going to be these people out there curious enough to watch it. Like what I would suggest is don't waste an hour and a half of your life. Don't waste your brain cells. I don't care how high you get. I don't care how drunk you get. Don't do it. Go to YouTube, watch like a 6 or 10 minute excerpt of the movie. You can go to YouTube and they have like the best moments, using air quotes once again, of this movie. That alone will give you a feel for what the whole movie is like, how bad it is. You don't need to subject yourself to the whole film. Just don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. No matter how bad I'm telling you this film is, don't fall into the morbid curiosity. Do not watch the whole movie. Don't waste 90 minutes of your life doing that. The movie is about 90 minutes long. That's about 95 minutes too long. Watch some excerpts on YouTube. You'll get the gist of what I'm talking about. When you see when you watch the YouTube video and you see the first scene that they show you, you're going to know how bad this film is. You don't need to watch the whole film. Don't do it. The Room, 2003, the absolute worst film I've ever seen. I cannot express enough how bad this film is. Nothing going for it. Actors you will not recognize. Actors and actresses who cannot act. Awkward love scenes. Everything bad that can be in a movie is in this movie. My number one film of all time, I'm not going to go on about it. The Room, 2003, directed by Tommy Wiseau, written, produced by him also. I'm telling you, watch excerpts. Do not, I repeat, do not watch the entire film.
Oddly enough, Internet Movie Database has that as a 3.7.
It's too high. Way too high.
It has Ready to Rumble actually being worse, I think it was. No, it was Leonard. It had Leonard being worse. It was like a 2 point something. On Amazon, The Room is 4.5 stars.
Those people are doing meth or smoking weed from Mars or drinking way too much.
And the multi-format version is $25.
Don't do it. I'm telling you, don't do it. Don't do it. I don't care how curious you get. Don't pay that money. Don't waste your time, your brain cells, your life. Look, man, I know it's only 90 minutes. There's a lot you can do in 90 minutes. Okay. You can read the Bible. You can study.
Sleep.
You can do anything.
Drink.
You can spend time with your child. If you have a child, you can spend time with your child. You can do anything with that 90 minutes. Don't watch this movie. Please, people, don't do it.
Public service announcement brought to you by Rob.
I'm just trying to help.
Appreciate the help. And I'm going to just mention a few other dishonorable mentions because The Room is on my dishonorable mention. I had never watched it until literally like a month and a half ago. It's just odd.
Oh, so you watched it?
I watched it.
Oh, I feel bad,
odd.
Man.
It's odd. I just didn't get it. I didn't get it. I'm just sitting here like, what the hell am I looking at? I just didn't get it.
Yeah.
So it didn't make it on my list because it was just so I just didn't get it. It was weird.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have morbid curiosity, so I fell into the trap. I said, how bad can it be? Let me watch this. And
it's bad.
And I regret it. I regret it.
It's definitely bad. But I'm just going to throw out just a few dishonorable mentions. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 3, back from 1993. Michael Bay's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Star Trek 2009. Dungeons and Dragons from 2000. Dolph Lundgren's The Punisher. The Hulk. Spider-Man 3. And you will appreciate this. Godzilla.
Oh.
Yeah. And I don't mean the more recent one. You know which one I'm talking about. 1998 with Matthew Broderick. It's not like
the recent one was great, but yeah,
it was better than that piece of shit. And Star Trek Generations, which I actually walked out of. So 2 Star Trek movies I've walked out of. Jeez. Believe it or not.
Okay.
Kirk dies in that one. That's why I walked out. And it's just stupid that they killed him. All right. My number one, which there's no way in the world this is a secret, because you were waiting, I'm sure, where this movie was going to be. And after I kept naming a movie, you're like, okay, it's a little higher up. And I kept going, you're like, okay, it's a little higher up. By the time I got to 4, I'm pretty sure you were like, okay, it's probably his number 1. And it didn't used to be. But yeah, this movie, it's Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin is just unmitigated torture. It is absolute piece of shit. I would rather watch The Room than watch Batman and Robin. It is bad. It's just, there is no redeeming qualities within this movie. Maybe looking at Alicia Silverstone's butt when she's dressed as Batgirl. That's about it. That's it. I mean, not even Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator himself, could save this piece of shit. And we should have known. I remember sitting in the theater for this, and I fell into, I'm a Batman dork. I'm gonna fall for it. I was hyped. At this point, I just didn't feel they could do wrong with Batman, and they hadn't. The original Tim Burton, amazing, classic. Batman Returns, a little bit of a drop, definitely, but still completely watchable. Batman Forever. I don't like the nipples on the Batsuit, and I don't think Val Kilmer was a good Batman, but the movie is completely watchable. So I just didn't think they could do wrong. This movie starts with them getting dressed in the Batsuit, Bat and Robin suit, and the whole thing of looking at the car when it's spinning around that Schumacher did in Batman Forever. And all of a sudden you hear Robin in the background go, I want a car. Chicks dig the car. And Clooney just looks at the camera and goes, this is why Superman works alone. I'm like, wait a minute. Now, you have to think of yourself at this time. There was not really a cross brand here where you would watch a Batman movie and they'd mention some other hero, or a Superman movie and it just didn't exist yet. They just threw Superman's name out there. And I'm like, okay, that's a little weird, but all right. It gets to the fighting at the very beginning, and Batman busts into this museum window, leaves the bat signal in the window. He somehow went through the window and it formed the bat logo. Don't know how he did that, whatever. And he just looks at Freeze and just goes in pure George Clooney voice. He doesn't throw his voice. He just says, hey, Freeze, I'm Batman. That's when I knew this movie was not going to be good. And this is literally like 5 minutes in. And I knew, yeah, this is shit. This is going to be bad. And what went on for the next 80 some odd minutes is truly eye torture, punishment for every negative thing I've ever done to anybody in my life. This movie is so bad in every sense of the word. There's just nothing good. The ice puns by Arnold, the pun master, they're all bad. And not even the good bad that we're used to with Arnold. These are just bad. They're just totally bad. Ooh, I'm a man, Thurman, which is what I call her because she looks like a dude to me.
What?
Just
Uma Thurman?
I think she looks like a dude. As she's aged, she looks like a dude. When she was younger, I thought she was hot. Back in the days of Baron Munchausen, I thought she was hot back then, which I own that movie on Blu-ray. I thought she was hot back then, but as she got older, she started looking like a dude to me. Just bad.
I haven't seen her
And
lately, but
Chris O'Donnell as Robin, I never was a fan of because he's too damn old. And he was just a brat in this movie to the 10th degree, which is weird because he's supposed to be like a teenager, but he was like in his mid 20s or 30s in this movie. It just didn't make sense. And George Clooney as Batman, you're supposed to kind of throw your voice a little bit. I mean, Keaton did it, Kilmer did it somewhat. Clooney couldn't even be bothered to try. He just said the hell with it. I'm going to just sound like myself. So when you hear him as Bruce or Batman, there's no fucking difference. He sounds the same. This movie is just torture. It is god awful. And it really took a beating on my Batman. I had to take a break from Batman for a little while because this movie was so bad. I just had to stick Batman on a shelf. I own this movie on VHS. I own this movie on DVD. Maybe someday I'll own it on Blu-ray, but I don't plan on it unless I buy a box set. The only prop I will give this movie, other than seeing Alicia Silverstone's butt in the Batgirl suit, is that because it was so bad, we got the Dark Knight trilogy. That's about the only thing that was good about this movie. We got the Dark Knight trilogy because this thing was so bad. And Joel Schumacher, at least he understood. I think, didn't Joel pass away?
he did pass away, yes.
Okay.
So
rest in peace, Joel Schumacher. At least he understood this movie was bad because the man apologized. And I was cursing his ass out because of this movie. But when I saw him apologize, I'm like, okay, I'm still blaming you, but I don't hate you as much as I did before. You're acknowledging that this movie is unmitigated torture. If you're a Batman fan and you haven't seen this movie, try to keep that streak going. Try. Unless there's some situation in which you need to watch it, which applies to you, Rob. So, because you still, even though I'm saying all this, and it's my number one, you still have to see it. And I even given you a reason to watch it because you can force me to watch something torturous that I've never seen. So I'm trying to make it even at least for you. But
okay,
yeah.
And that's the odd thing about it. I own this movie, right? I have a DVD set that has all four of these films. I've seen the other three, and I believe Joel Schumacher directed the one previous to this. I believe it was called Batman Forever. I like that one. I enjoy that one with Kilmer as Batman. So, but I heard mostly from you how bad this one was, so I have avoided it. So you're on this podcast telling everybody else listening, don't watch it. But you have continuously tried to convince me to watch it. Now, look, one of these days, will I watch it? Yeah, man. I mean, I own the movie. And like I said, I have morbid curiosities. I will watch it sometime.
I'll even watch it with you if it takes that.
It's not that. What I'm trying, for as far as you're concerned, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to think, okay, what movie can I possibly torture you with? Right? I want to make sure that I know what movie I want to torture you with before I let you know that, okay, I'm going to watch Batman and Robin. I want to be able to say to you, but you have to watch this. So I'm still working on that. So, but yeah, man, I've heard not just from you, but from other people how bad this one was, which is why I've avoided it so much, because I enjoy the rest of them in the series. I'm not nearly as big of a Batman fan as you are, but who doesn't love Batman? All right. So I'm curious, but like I
You
said,
watch The Room,
once
man.
I
You
figure
watch The
out
Room.
what I want to torture you, once I figure out what I want to torture you with, then I will go ahead and watch. Like I said, I already own it, so why not watch it? I've already paid, it's already bought and paid for. I already own it, so why not watch it? I will, as soon as I figure out what I can absolutely positively torture you with.
I think I already know what you'll end up picking, but I'm not going to give you ideas. So I'm pretty sure I
Oh,
know. But
okay. All right. Maybe.
but that's it. That is our 10. And I am going to mention one more dishonorable mention. And the reason this one's a dishonorable mention, it couldn't make it into the 10 because it's not a theatrical movie. Because had I counted this, it would have been number 1. Because it is really, really bad, and it is called The Amazing Bulk. I don't know
The
if you've
Amazing
heard of it.
what?
The Amazing Bulk.
No.
It is exactly what you're thinking it is. It is a spoof of the Incredible Hulk, except this is one of those overseas type of spoofs where they are deliberately, blatantly copying, and it is god awful. Well, The Amazing Bulk, it's free on YouTube. You can watch it if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it, but
Yeah.
oh good god, it's the worst movie not in a theater. It's just god awful. It's so off. I lost brain cells watching that movie. It is, if it was a choice between that and Batman and Robin, I'd probably watch Batman and Robin.
Wow.
It's that bad. It's that bad.
One thing I will say, and I'll make it brief, I know we've been going a long time. When we originally talked about this list, and this is another reason why it took so long for me to get my list together, is I have a lot of movies that I know good and well are awful movies, but I like them. But then you said, well, no, don't use those because maybe one day we'll do a guilty pleasures list. So when I had to throw a lot of those movies away, it was like, okay, well, damn, now I got to go back to the drawing board. So that's another reason why this one took so long.
Well, guilty pleasures, we like those movies. That's the difference. These we don't like. The guilty pleasures, we're acknowledging their shit, but we like them. Like Howard the Duck. It's shit, but I love that movie.
Yeah, well, you're half right. To me, it's just shit.
It's okay. I know I'm alone in that one, and I will die on that sword. I don't care. But that's it.
Duck
that
titties.
Is our. I don't care. I cracked up when I saw that. That is our list. What do y'all think? What would be on your list? Do you have any show ideas? What to you is the worst movies ever made? You can get a hold of me in plenty different ways. Right there, if you're on YouTube, you can see them. You can go on to emailing me. Just send an email out to thecountdown2020@gmail.com. You can go onto the Facebook page. Just search the Countdown 2020 Podcast 1. Go on Twitter. Just go at the Countdown PO1. On Instagram, Countdown 20. Spotify, you can listen to all the episodes. Just search the Countdown 2020. I'm on Amazon Audible. Just search the Countdown Podcast. I'm on iHEART Radio. Again, search the Countdown Podcast. You can go on to Podbean. All these episodes are released through Podbean, and you have access to the archive. Just search the episode, search Podbean, the Countdown Podcast, or you can go to the archive website that's there, countdown2020.podbean.com. And of course, YouTube, got the Countdown Podcast with MJ Book. Search for that. Also, I'm going to let you do the advertisement for Third Generation Wrestling, sir. Go ahead.
Well, you know, our esteemed host, the real Big E. He's the expert on that. But I know that we post audio and video on YouTube. We're also on Apple iTunes. We're on Podbean, and we are also on Instagram. So hit us up there. MJ Book, he's a frequent guest on the show, and we've had some great shows lately. We recently went to AEW All Out in Chicago, saw it live, one of the greatest pay-per-views I think ever. And we've done a show about that. We recently did a show, just a discussion show, talking about the product, WWE, the new NXT, AEW. MJ Book was featured on that one. So yeah, hit us up on that. If you're a wrestling fan, or even if you're not, just give us a try. Think you'll enjoy it.
Definitely. And do want to take this time to thank you again, Rob, for coming on to the show. We've been meaning to do this thing for quite a while, and it's good to finally get this thing done. Thank you very much for coming on to the show again. I guess the next one we'll have to do is the Guilty Pleasures one.
That one will be easier for me. I promise that one, it won't take me nearly as long as it took to get this one complete, because I've got a lot of guilty pleasures, and I look forward to that one.
All right, I guess we can agree. That's going to be our next one, is the Guilty Pleasures. I'm going to throw this out here again. This episode, of course, for Ronda. So rest in peace, miss you, and wish you were here, but I know your things are better for you now. But I still miss you, girl. And please, thank you all for listening in. This is going to be a two-parter. If you're listening, you already know it. It's going to be a two-parter. But this is what happens when passionate about a subject. I already knew this one would be too, so no big deal. And I will catch you all again. But before I do that, I do have to throw out the mcomtech.com. I got to thank them for the royalty-free music that I use, Ice Flow. Kevin MacLeod, thank you for that. I've been using that from the beginning of the show, and I will catch you all again on the next episode of The Countdown. Have yourself a great day or evening, whatever time it is. Bye-bye.